Holy moly, it's Scotty Bowman, the all-time winningest coach in NHL history. Nine Stanley Cups as a coach, 14 overall as an executive. Yada, yada, yada. I've heard it a million times. He's probably sick of hearing it. Maybe he's not. And he's an all-around great guy, by the way. Although, Scotty, your players back in the day probably didn't say that about you, did they?
Well, I think the ones that got into hockey probably forgot about it, but so many of them went on, as you know. I don't want to name a bunch of names; I'll forget somebody. But they went on to be managers and coaches, and some of them, certainly Serge Savard had the two last cups as manager of the Canadiens, and Jacques Lemaire and Larry Robinson. They've been in a tandem with Lou Lamoriello forever. So they've got, I don't know. I saw a thing with Larry the other day. I think he had six cups as a player, got
Yeah.
another four now.
Wow.
He also had one with the St. Louis Blues.
He's
He
catching
was
up to you.
he was the well. I hope he does. No,
But wait
he
a minute. Wait a minute. So you're saying because you rubbed off on them and they're all successful hockey people that they love you now. But when you were coaching them,
no, they know what you went through. I mean, I'm just
oh,
saying now
oh,
that
I
now that they've gone into the business, or rather, they're not doing it much. Not many of them are doing it anymore.
I
But
got you.
they now they can any thoughts they had if they look on their own career post playing, of course. But
Right.
a lot of them got into that, and rightly so.
Right. They understand where you were coming from. That's
That's
what you're trying to
yeah, that's
say.
about it.
Now, would you be able, let me just ask you this hypothetical. Would you be able to coach in today's NHL given the athletes of today, or would you want to coach the athletes of today?
Well, when you do any job, Rob, you have to make yourself think subject to change. Or if you don't, you're not going to be able to do the good job. So, I mean, I know it's so much different. I do talk to some of the coaches that I've got to know through the years. I've talked to the Detroit coach, Rob. That he was there when Mike Babcock won the cup in 2008. So I got to know. I traveled with the team in the playoffs. That was when I wasn't coaching the Red Wings anymore. And he just says that it's so different now. He had to change a lot, his theory. And he said, the players get on the bus, and it's not, they're not trying to sneak a couple of beers like our guys did. They're back there and they're texting, and they're keeping it. They're doing it all different. So,
Right.
and I think that's true. You have to change. If you're not going to change, you're not going to be as successful as you could be.
But I also have a theory that if you were still coaching, regardless of how the athletes had changed, there would have been an aura. Let's face it, we're not saying this is Scotty Bowman in 1971. We're saying this is Scotty Bowman with nine Stanley Cups. There'd be like an aura and like a, hey, it's my way or the highway. Like they would kind of be respectful of what was going on. In other words, if they knew they came to the team that you were coaching, things weren't going to be, they would still be some old school elements to it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was always very fortunate. I mean, the two people that I did spend a lot of time when I was a young junior coach, actually when I was in Peterborough, Ontario, the Toronto Maple Leafs I got there in 1958 in Peterborough. I coached them 3 years.
Yeah.
That was just when Punch Imlach started with Toronto. So I
Wow.
got to know Punch, even though Peterborough was a farm team of Montreal. He was very, very helpful. Very, he was a good guy because I went had lunch with him. I played some golf with him, and I mean, Punch was a tough cookie in those days. It was always a holdout. It was Frank Mahovlich wasn't signed. Carl Brewer wasn't signed. Dave Keon, and they practiced for 6 weeks. And and I listened to Punch quite a bit. And then I got the good fortune when I went to coach junior in Montreal. I had 2 or 3 years with Toe Blake watching the practices. I actually watched Dick Irvin the first year that I got a job coaching a junior B team. I went to the Forum and I watched the Canadians practice, and I never met him very much, only once, I think. Yeah, I met him on the Richard Riot night because Dick Irvin and I were friends, and he brought me in the dressing room instead of trying to get out on the street. But
Wow.
anyway, I think
Wait,
I
wait,
would.
wait, wait, wait. On the Richard riot night, he dragged you into the dressing room like for protection as the whole place was going going
Well,
bonkers.
the bomb went off, and
The tear gas, the tear gas.
tear gas went off, and I was trying to go by the. I had played junior, and I was trying to walk by the room to get outside to get back home. And Dick saw me. He said, "Don't go outside." And he brought me in the. I got in the Montreal Canadiens dressing room. That's the first time, and I met his dad. But a lot of people were in there at the time.
All right, I want to go rapid fire with you. Here we go. This is the part I warned you about before we started. I'm going to go rapid fire, and you're going to put you on the spot. You ready? Scotty
Sure.
Bowman, this is 5 days before your birthday. This is your birthday present. Okay, you're you're starting a hockey team. You have an option. You get the first pick. Kansas City Scouts get the other guy. Okay. Sergei Fedorov or Steve Yzerman? Who do you take? It's your first pick for your hockey club. Real quick,
Well,
just give me the real basic why. Which guy do you take first?
well, I mean, I'm prejudiced because I was there so long and he was there so long. Steve, to me, because the fact that, yeah, I don't know in baseball, what do they call him? A five something.
Five tool player.
He was like more than a five tool player. I mean, a leadership, which he developed by being captain for 10 years. He was an offensive machine. He gave it up to be a two-way hockey player. He got a team going. We were getting Kenny Holland was a wizard at getting players, and Mike Ilitch was a wizard at paying them. We know that, and Kenny and I and we were always talking about players, and all those players that came into Detroit, like Chelios and all the Russians, Larionovs, and we had Murphy, guys that were established players in the NHL that came into our team, and like Brett Hull, even my last cup, and Luke Robitaille, and it was a seamless transition for those players. I know they wanted to win, and they were on the backside of their careers, but that wasn't an easy task. I don't know, Steve. It was a very I don't know, quiet man, but we never had any. I can tell you, I was there only the 1 year with those kind of players, but the last year they all wanted to win, of course, but that was not easy for Steve when you start bringing in captains from other teams. I
Yeah.
mean, because you're always going to have ups and downs. So, I mean, it's real close, but Steve was a six tool guy.
Yeah. Sergey could play D though, and you needed him to.
Well, I mean, if he could have played goalie, I might have picked him, but I know how important goalies are.
All right, let me ask you this. Let's say you've already got Fedorov and Yzerman. Which of the other Russian five do you take next?
Well, Laddie
Pick one.
Konstantinov for defense
Yes.
was, I mean, this
He's an
player,
animal.
this player was very close to being able, I don't say would have done it, he would have been in the conversation going forward with Nick Lidstrom for some awards. I mean, they were totally different players, but
Yep.
we only had him the one year. I only had him the 1 year, but what a player! I mean,
Dominating.
I
And
would
he was intimidating. That's the part that really
toughest Soviet player that ever played.
oof. That's amazing. I'll tell you this, you'll like this one. So I was working for the Rangers briefly. I was working more for the league in New York City, but then I did some Rangers games and I was hanging around. I talked to Brian Leach quite often. And I told him one time, I've been known to be a bit blunt. And I said, you know what, Brian, I hate to tell you, but that last Norris Trophy you won, Konstantinov should have won it. And he
Oh,
goes, and I don't know his exact words, but he basically said, I don't disagree with you,
well,
which
he
says
was
a
a
lot
good,
about Brian Leach's
yeah,
humility.
he was a great
Also,
player.
yeah,
Yeah.
but says a lot about he had twice as many points as Konstantinov. Konstantinov had twice as many penalty minutes, 96, 97. But Leach is like, Yeah, I could see that. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, hold on. I'm putting you on the spot again here. Oh, by the way, you probably see the number 9 right here.
I see it right in my eyes.
My boy Gordy, my hero, as he is for so many people. I was curious, growing up in Quebec, he was worshipped by Western Canadians because they only got limited television. It was Anglo, yada yada yada. Um, what did Quebecois hate him, fear him, respect him? What was the opinion of Gordie Howe,
No, I mean,
a rival of Maurice Richard, etc.?
well, that was such a big rivalry in the 50s. I mean, overtime games, when you really think about it, you go from 1950, and then, with the Red Wings finishing first 7 seasons in a row
Yeah,
from 48 to 55, and then you got Toronto sneaking in there for that 1951 Stanley Cup. The Red Wings won in 50. They won in 52. Montreal upset them, I would say, in 53, but the overtime games. And then the Montreal and Detroit, they dominated the 50s. The only team that ever got in there was Toronto for the 51 Cup,
yeah.
and nobody else. So, I mean, I think it's more respect. Because I mean, I grew up in Montreal. I have Gordy. I'm like Wayne Gretzky, and I know Wayne feels this way. That I've always said this, and I will continue to say it. And I'll take it to my grave. That if I was going to make a mold of a hockey player, that you'd say touching all the bases, the men I have to take all the time. I know all the records are challenged every time, as Gordy. Gordy, to me, I mean, I saw him play. I was a teenager in Montreal. I somehow gravitated. I had a pass because I was playing junior, and maybe from the time I was 16 or 17, I couldn't go to a lot of games, but because we were playing some nights. But Saturday night we didn't play, and I didn't miss a Detroit game. I used to get to the Forum at 7 o'clock. The game was at 8:30. I had to go upstairs and grab my spot, my standing room spot. But I got there early, and I just used to admire the Red Wing players. The taxis dropped them off at the front door. They took a few steps. They were inside the door. So I followed. I didn't miss a Detroit game. I mean, the night like March 17th, 1955, I was there, and I didn't miss a Detroit game on a Saturday unless I was playing or something.
So that was that the riot night?
Riot,
Okay.
Halloween. It was St. Patrick's
St.
Day.
Patrick's Day, because we referred to it before. Clarence Campbell, the president of the league's in the building. He suspended Maurice Richard.
I stood up right at the section. If I walked down the stairs, Clarence Campbell sitting in the first row, right behind the walkway. He had the very first row, sitting with his wife. So I mean, I probably had to. I don't know how I got down from the blue. It was the blue section. I used to. That's the first section in those days. The Reds, and there was the Blues, and I walked right down as soon as it happened, and then I sort of go to. I know how to get to the back of the Forum, and that's when I got Dick Irvin to say, "Come on in here. You don't want to go out on the street now." And
Wow.
that was a terrible thing. I mean, I know a lot about that game. Red Wings were ahead, I think 1-0, and they called the game right away. They gave the game. That cost them the cup because the Rocket got the Montreal was ahead by a point, and then the Red Wings got the lead and never lost it.
Man, that's crazy. I got to ask you about one guy real quick. Ken Dryden. We're not going to talk about Ken again. We obviously have been talking a lot about him lately, and you've been on a number of shows and offering condolences and remembrances. But he wrote a book about you 5 years ago called Scotty, and in it he talks about Jean-Guy Talbot, who ended up winning 7 Stanley Cups, played more than 1,000 games. He's 93 years old. I assume he lives somewhere in Quebec.
He passed away.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he was the second. There was only 2 members of the team of the 5 in a row that were the 13 players played 5 in a row, and he passed away about a year ago. And
Okay.
then about 6 months ago, Don Marshall was the last
Wow.
list. Yeah, but Junkie, you're right. He born 1931.
Okay, yeah, because they had him listed on a couple sites as still being around at 93. So I
I
thought he,
don't. The oldest living Canadian player, because there was a mix-up on his age, and Dick Irvin was able to solve it. Maybe the last 6 months, Marcel Bonnet.
really.
Somebody had his age 1 year younger than he actually is, and they called the Montreal Canadiens. Regent Houle, the alumni director, phoned his daughter, and they because the statistics that the league had for all these years were 1 year incorrect.
How
They
old is
were
he?
He was born 1931, I think, or
Okay,
30. 30, so he
93
would be 94.
or 95.
Yeah, Marcel Bonnet.
So Jean-Guy Talbot hit you over the head when you're a junior A player, ends your career essentially. Um, do you think he kind of did you, I don't want to say he did you a favor, but your whole life changed because
Yeah.
you may or may not have made it to the big show as kind of an undersized whatever,
It's
right?
pretty. The chances of We had a really super Memorial Cup team. I was youngest on the team, but it didn't matter. That was two players on that team made the NHL because
That's it.
Don Marshall and my friend Bucky Hollingworth was up for about a couple of years, but he became a minor league player. But the chances of you making the NHL in the 50s as a junior, boy, I mean, I could evaluate myself pretty well. I knew what kind of a player from not when I was playing, but I wasn't much of a defensive player. I
Talking
could
original six. I mean, we're talking about
Montreal.
do the
Montreal
math.
had Montreal had so many players. Rob, the best story I can tell you. I was in Ottawa when Ralph Backstrom came down from Kirkland Lake. He was the most sought after junior. Canadians got him to go and play in Ottawa with the junior Canadians. I'm not sure we moved from Quebec. I'm not sure if we stayed in Quebec if he would have came, but he came to Ottawa, and he was the best junior in Canada for 2 straight seasons. We lost the Memorial Cup the first year in 1957. We lost the seventh game to the Flin Flon Bombers. They were augmented by 3 or 4 because the West wasn't winning at that time, and they weren't competing with the East. They beat us in 7 games. We had an all-star team from Quebec, plus guys like Backstrom. We had another good player for the Canadians brought in from Winnipeg. His name was Jerry Wilson as a junior. He was fantastic. But Ralph went up after we won the Cup in 58, the Memorial Cup. We beat Regina back home. We had the home ice. We beat them in 6 games. And Ralph, Canadians had to put him on the team because they had won the Cup. They won the Cup in 56 and 57 and 58. And then they won 2 more. But there's no way they could send him to the minors or start. So he started with Canadians. But this is what happened to him. He was a superstar junior, one of the best I ever saw play junior hockey. He was like a McDavid is now in the NHL. He could take the puck from one end to the other. The other guy I saw do it a lot, I had him for a few years, but not at the beginning of his career, Gilbert Perreault. And these guys could take the puck, and Bobby Hull could do it too, but as centerman. And Ralph made the Canadians. But they had Jean Beliveau. He was about 27. They had Henri Richard. He was about 23. They had Phil Goyette. They had Don Marshall. They had brought in from college their best prospect, Red Berenson.
Wow.
He was a sixth center, but he had to play. They used him, and Toll finally made him into a really good checking centerman. He was in on the forgotten dynasty of the Canadians. You probably know it. I mean, everybody talks about our 4 in a row and then the Montreal 5. But when Sam Pollock became general manager of the Canadians, he started with the team in 47, but he was kind of running things after the mid-50s. But they gave him the job after they won the 5 in a row. Chicago won in 61. And then Toronto with Punch Imlach won 62, 63, 64. And they gave Sam Pollock the manager's job officially in the summer of 64. Canadians won the cup in 65 and 66. Their strongest team was 67. They lost to the Leafs, as we know, the last time they won. And they also won in 68 and 69.
Yeah.
So Ralph played, but Ralph was on a defensive line most of his career with John Ferguson and Claude LaRose.
Wow.
And Blake used them the same as he used earlier on, Claude Provost, Marshall, Goyette. He always had a line, and that's the one thing, another thing I learned from Toe Blake. He always told me, no matter how many great players you have on a team, you better have some foot soldiers. He called them foot soldiers.
That's never changed.
No, I had Riseborough, Lambert, Tremblay in Montreal, and I had Draper, Maltby, McCarty, and Koser in Detroit. And I'm telling you, and look at the team in Florida Panthers now. They got those kind of guys.
Yeah, same thing. By the way, a couple things. Backstrom won Rookie of the Year in the NHL.
Yeah, he only played about 12 minutes a game.
Yeah. What was the other one? Oh, the 66 Cup, though, was controversial because the pocket rocket pushed the puck in with his arm.
Detroit.
Yep, against Detroit.
Frankenberry was the referee.
Who was?
Frankenberry.
Frankenberry, yep. Yep, I've heard a lot of Frankenberry stories talking to a lot of the officials.
He was a good referee, though.
All right, Scotty. So anyway, Jean-Guy Talbot hits you over the head. You're not going to make the team. You end up being the all-time winningest coach of all times, and you're buddies with this guy forever, right? You brought him to St. Louis to play.
We were, when the league, when we expanded the 6 teams, it's an amazing thing. We got 18 players, and we had to fend for ourselves. We didn't get a draft for 2 years, so anybody like that was around that. Minnesota, for some reason, they got him in the expansion draft, and by January they put him on waivers, and we were not even in the playoffs in January. And I mean, it was an easy decision. I said, here's a guy that can play forward and defense, and we needed an NHL player, so we brought him in, and well, the rest is history. And I think he ended up even coaching in the league, but. And coach the Rangers, I know that, and then maybe even the Blues. But no, Jean-Guy was a really valuable player. He was very similar to another one of his teammates that we had on the team, Jim Roberts.
Yeah,
and we paired them up, and we had a hang of a team in St. Louis. We had Barclay Plager and Al Arbour as a combination, and Al Arbour was a great defenseman, taught a lot about playing defense to Barclay, and he was an offensive guy. We had 2 tough guys, Bob Plager and Noel Picard, but we didn't have another, and we only used 4 defensemen most of the time. But I had Jean-Guy Talbot and Jim Roberts in my team, and I would use them on occasion on defense if we needed a good spot rest, or I could use them as defensive forwards, and we did.
Amazing. By the way, you never had any hard feelings.
No, I wasn't. I mean, you
conked on a breakaway, right? You were on a breakaway?
Yeah, things happen. I mean, it happened. I didn't see it happening.
Hockey.
He got suspended, but I was feeling okay by the time they lifted the suspension. I went to a meeting, and I mean, by that time I'd recovered, and I if I was going to do anything, I would have done it before. He was suspended for a year, and I said, wow, I didn't care about that. He was turning pro. So he turned pro with the Aces, and then he came to Montreal.
Cracked you in the head. Maybe made you smarter.
Who knows?
Happy birthday, Scotty, and this coming week, the ripe young age of 92.
I don't count them now.
What's that?
I don't count them now. But I got to tell you a quick story. I went to Peterborough in 1958. The president of the team ran a finance company, but he was president of the team. He wasn't the paid president, but he's a wonderful person. And I didn't know it at the time. He had served in the Second World War. He never told anybody about it. When I got there, he was, I think he was 40 years old. We've kept in touch. He's 106 years old.
Wow.
and he lives in the Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto in the veterans wing. He moved in there when he was 92.
Huh.
So he's been there for 15 years.
Wow.
And Johnny Bauer became a big one in his retirement days. Johnny made a lot of appearances to that place, and Doug Cochran's his name, and I keep in touch with it. I haven't spoken to him lately. He's got a birthday coming in October, and we're hoping that he can make it. But he's on the decline. Poor man, 106 years old. So when you talk about a man like that, that gives you inspiration.
That's pretty good. Johnny Bauer is unbelievable. I've interviewed him a couple times in Toronto, and when you said Al Arbour's name, it reminded me. I was in his house in Florida interviewing him a long time ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
his nickname was Radar because he had such bad eyesight. You were like,
his wife just passed away a couple of years ago, Claire.
Oh, did she?
She lived in a residence there. She was a lovely lady.
Yeah, they lived.
Al was only a great captain. He was a wonderful person, a great coach.
Yeah, I think I worked with his daughter briefly in New York, and they lived on Longboat Key down there. And
beautiful place.
Yeah, Scotty, thank you. Happy birthday again, and always a joy. And
well, you can listen to these podcasts. There's so many now.
I know.
Don't even know. I mean,
crazy.
Some of them. Neil Smith is doing one. The Ranger manager. Yeah, Neil.
I know
Pierre McGuire does one with
Jimmy Murphy.
Yeah, man from Boston. I don't know.
Yeah, Jimmy Murphy.
You know all those guys? Yeah.
All those guys. I know Neil. I go back with Neil, interviewed him back in the day after they won with the Rangers and all that. And
the Red Wings have a big ceremony. Well, they're not the only team. I know Chicago, I don't know what they're going to do, a 100 years anniversary. Like in 1925, they both started. And
as the Falcons and then the Cougars, or the Cougars and then the Falcons and then the Red Wings. They were
yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I think the year is one year is one, another year is another, and then they became the Red Wings. But
yeah, I mean, they're going to have the 100 years anniversary. The Red Wings are having a big 5-day fan fest and everything.
Nice.
They got 2 games in that weekend. They're trying to get as many people as they can to get there, but I don't know.
By the way, I was going to ask you, will you go to Fedorov's thing in January?
I haven't heard about it yet.
January 12th.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Hall of Fame in November.
I'll see you at the Hall of Fame in November. It's fun around India. When I did my 31 teams, 31 days, 31 cities, 2018, I got to sit and watch a game in Tampa with you in the press box. That was unbelievable.
I like to go there. Duncan Keith was a good man for the Hawks, and I got to know a lot of the players, but I got a special, I don't know, Duncan and I got along pretty well, and he was always asking me. Joel was a wonderful coach, Joel Quenville, and Duncan used to ask me a lot of questions about hockey, and I'm so happy that he got in because he deserved it. You can miss those kind of guys. He wasn't a big point getter, but he could play. There's not many guys that could have played the minutes he did at the way he played, and he was a tough little guy, boy.
Yeah. Well, I was buddies with Chara, so we got pals there. So we'll see you up there. It was fun. I ran into that in Toronto at that Russian 5 movie premiere a few years back.
Well, they're gonna do. I don't know if it's gonna. I mean, I guess the Russian 5 movie did pretty well for the kind of documentary it is. Now, according to Keith, he's not sure how it's going to work, but they're going to do one with actors now, with real movie actors. So I don't know, but I think that it won't be the Russian 5 was. He did a lot of work for that because Keith had the speak Russian.
Spoke Russian. Yeah, he spoke Russian. He's a newspaper
correspondent, and he still does a lot of stuff, but. He goes down to Florida, and I see him in the winter.
Yeah, we're talking about Keith Gave, who wrote The Grind Line last year. Great book.
He said he's doing okay with the book. I hope he does well.
Good. Yeah, it's a great book. By the way, real quick, since we did the rapid fire, you don't even have to give me a reason. You got one coach besides yourself. You're the GM. You get to pick one coach. Game 7, from a tactical standpoint, who's behind the bench for you in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final? You get to pick one coach.
Well, I'm prejudiced. I mean, I would definitely have to pick my mentor, Blake.
Okay, fair enough. He did pretty
he,
well.
he only won 8 times and he coached 13 years.
Yeah, I was going to say,
The man that I'm the closest with, because he had a lot to do with the start we had, and also like we became really good friends of the family, was Al Arbour.
yeah,
He had a wonderful career. He didn't have a good post career. He had a darn knee that got infected, and it really caused nothing but trouble.
yeah. Scotty, thank you very much. Happy birthday. See you in Toronto.
Okay, I'll just stay here a couple of minutes. Bye.